name is David Mello, and I'm speaking to you here from the Fall River Public Library, where I happen to be the children's librarian. I also happen to be a real robot nut. I'm a true toy robot aficionado, have been all my life, since I first came upon my first robot probably about 1966 on a Christmas Eve, and I just fell in love with the toy. That love has never diminished over the years, but it's grown to a collection of, now I have 168 toy robots. And I know, compared to a lot of collectors out there, some real serious collectors, that's actually a very small amount. But my collection is very special to me, and I add to it whenever I can, and I'd like to share with you some of the robots from that collection. Now, my last broadcast was in August of 2020. During that fun COVID time, FRC Media was kind enough to do a little program featuring a lot more of my collection, and I was just overwhelmed by the number of people that responded to the this program that we did, and all the questions that we received, and just people from all around the world. I was fascinated by it, and I've tried to answer a few of those questions that I best as I can over the years. I'm not great at going online and answering things on YouTube, so please forgive me, but I'm going to try to make a point of answering more of those for this particular program and revisiting that last broadcast we did. But I'm calling this little presentation here Toy Robots, Old, New, and the Strange. And why I'm calling it this is because I've got some of my older robots in my collection that I'd like to share with you. I've got some newer ones that were put out more recently that might be familiar and might not be. And I've got one particular robot that is just strange. I have not been able to come across any mention of it in any of the online encyclopedias or toy books, so perhaps someone out there can help me identify it. So we'll get on right now with the old. And I am delighted to share with you this particular robot. He is my newest robot added to the collection. I'm broadcasting from Fall River, Massachusetts, and twice a year we have this wonderful antique toy auction, not auction, but show in Dedham, Mass, and I acquired him this past December, and I was thrilled. He is Mr. Atom, and he is from 1955. He is manufactured by, I generally should know this, by the Advanced Doll and Toy Company from Western Connecticut. Now, why would a doll company, a toy company that specializes in making girls' dolls, stop producing toy robots? Well, the answer is a pretty good one, I think. In 1955, when this fellow was first came about, it was the start of the space race, primarily between the Soviet Union and the United States. Everyone was talking about the frontiers of space and getting our rockets and satellites up there. In 1959, Sputnik, I believe it was 1957, Sputnik was the first satellite put up into the atmosphere. And 1961, we saw Yuri Gagarin, first Soviet man to astronaut to circumnavigate the world in a capsule. And so the space race was on. So it made sense for the doll company to try to get their foot in the door manufacturing space toys because they were becoming all the rage. Your rockets, tin rocket ships, tin robots, tin spacemen, they were all beginning to emerge at this particular time. And this was their entry into that space toy race. Mr. Atom. He stands 17 inches tall, pretty tall for a robot during the day and for robots that you find now. And he is all made out of plastic, and a very fragile plastic let me tell you. You'll find many of these in antique stores, also online and on eBay. You find very few of them that come without cracks or broken parts or missing domes of the eyes. He is very fragile. Just to hold him, you get a sense of that. So I was very fortunate to come upon him literally being in a pristine condition. He is noted for having cracked legs. He's got gorgeous legs. Noted for having the rubber bands that hold him together on the sides of his head and on his arms. They generally rot out, but his are the original ones. His dome, his eyes are perfectly clear, and he is just a wonderful example of this very primitive-looking robot. And I know when I think of robots, what immediately comes to mind is this primitive look, the boxy torso, the square head, the grill-like mouth, the bulging eyeballs, the claw hands. And he's a perfect example of that. And he is particularly noted for having very tiny feet. Just look at this robot. You look at him and you look at his size and his shape and his stature, and you say, how can this guy ever walk? How does he even stand up compared to other robots? They have very wide bases. But he manages to do very, very well. Even his claws, they're quite small. But this particular robot came out in 1955. We can see an ad for him here, put out by the, again, the Advanced Doll and Toy Company. And he's alongside, he looks out of place here, alongside all these other walking dolls. And that's him making his premiere. And he's claimed to be the first electric walking robot. Okay, I don't know how true that is, but it sounds very good. Even on his original box, if you excuse me for a moment. Oops.
You're okay.
I have his original box. Very, very fortunate to get this. It's a little rough, but it's all there, even the inserts, which are wonderful to have. But we have a wonderful illustration of him on the front. Again, he's the first electric robot. We see the crossed electrical bolts across his chest, and we see all the rivets in his body, and it boasts. He walks alone. He lights up. He buzzes. He signals. He sends code. Completely animated. It also says, almost as an afterthought, completely safe and harmless. So I guess that was to guarantee that your child wasn't going to be electrocuted if you bought this as a gift for their birthday or for Christmas. But the box has some wonderful illustrations on it, and it tells everything, lets you know everything to expect from this robot when he's fully in operation. And he is capable of sending Morse code by pressing this little buzzer right here. I don't know what message I just sent, but I hope it was a good one. But it was kind of common to have that little Morse code buzzer there. The Mox electric robot, which also came out in 1955, also plastic, had the same feature as well. For those of you who are familiar with that robot, it looks, I can't say it looks similar because that is a skirted robot without legs, but the coloration, the red, the gray, and the use of the rivets and the design, very, very similar. And now let's get to the walking part. And he has two modes. One, he walks along. And I was very fortunate to get him. And his head should be turning back and forth right about now, but he's not. I did perform a little robot surgery on him the other day, and I forgot to attach that feature. But his head does move back and forth. And then he has a second mode where we have the buzzing and the flashing eyes. And you see his little feet do not impede him in any way from marching across the table. To me, he's just a darn good-looking robot. Thank you for that demonstration. And he's very interesting the way he's put together. A lot of robots, they're put together with multiple screws or tabs. Basically, he is held together by a single screw, his body, that is. There's a single screw or bolt that runs through him. You unscrew that, the front of his body comes off as soon as you remove the rubber tabs on the side of his head as well. And the construction inside him is remarkably like a clock. It's a very heavy gauge metal compared to most toy robots that I've come across. And when I first got him, he was not working. But after a couple days tinkering around, I'm no expert on toy robots. I can't even change the oil in my car, but I pay close attention to them, the gears, what they're supposed to be doing, and I tinker around, and I'm able to figure them out. And we were able to get him walking in about a day or two. And so here's my Mr. Adam, and he's got his name going right down the bridge of his nose, which is kind of cool. And yeah, he's one of my favorite robots in my collection. I was after him for many, many years. Again, when they come on online auctions, they're scooped up very quickly if they're in any kind of good condition. And I was just thrilled to walk upon him, come across him at that toy fair and see him just sitting there waiting for me. So that's Mr. Adam. Now we're going to take a look at another older toy robot. And here he is, Mr. Zot. Okay, and this was a wonderful buy. Mr. Zot is one that comes up not all that often on eBay and on other toy auctions, online toy auctions. I've never seen him at a toy fair or in an antique shop. He came out in, let me see, the mid-'70s is what I can come across. And he is manufactured by Play Art, a toy manufacturer I'm not precisely familiar with, but he was just one of these wonderful buys. When you go on eBay, there's that buy now option. Well, I was doing my regular robot shopping, and I came across him, and it said buy now, and it was $13. $13 with shipping. That's right. He was $9, and I saw him, and I couldn't get over. I said, "There's got to be something going on here," and you know, I thought about it for a few minutes, and then I quickly you know, pressed that button for the buy now feature, and I purchased them right away. And what a deal, because these can go for a lot of money. The only drawback to him is that I bought him without his original dome. He generally has a very semicircular red dome on his head, but I'm so proud of myself. After trying to get a replacement dome, which I still not have been able to come across, I stole one of my wife's hand lotion bottles, and I took the top of the bottle. It was much deeper than that. I cut it to the proper size, sanded it down, fit in like a charm, and he looks magnificent. Not the original dome, but I don't think if I told you, if you were not a regular toy robot expert, that you'd be able to detect it. But it still looks very good on him. And this is an unusual coloration. As you know, a lot of the robots out there, even though they look identical, they have many, many different color variations. The more popular version of Mr. Zot is an orange body or a reddish body with yellow arms. So this is a very unusual color rendition of him with the gray body and the red arms. He's a little bit older. worn, I should say, but not that bad. The chrome is a little tarnished, but that gives him a nice, old vintage look. But he works wonderfully, and here he goes. And for a toy as old as he is, from the 70s, he's got a lot of energy in him. And he's kind of unique for robots in the toy robot world, because just look at the face. He's smiling. I mean, he's really a jolly type of robot. A lot of them, as you'll see, they're very, very stern, very serious faces. But he rather enjoys his lot in life being a robot. And when I did purchase him and he came along, he was not working, and but as luck would have it, I took him apart very carefully. He disassembles very easily, and without any tinkering around. One of the first things you should always do, before you ever take a robot apart, I should say, gently bang the bottom of them. Sometimes that's just enough to jar the mechanism inside, the engine inside. You got to keep in mind, many of these robots, they were probably forgotten in an attic or in a basement. They haven't been touched for years. The motors might have frozen up. The lubricant inside them has dried out. So sometimes just a little bit of gentle encouragement, like a tapping or a tapping on the back, is all you need to get them going. I went through that, the tapping on the bottom, tapping on the back. He still didn't agree. Always use fresh batteries too. But I did take him apart, and all I did was I took my penknife and I pushed the gear, the main gear on the motor, just forward a little bit, and he started running like a charm. And from there, I just cleaned him out a little bit, put a little lubricant on all the major spots, and he's been working wonderfully. And I've had him for about 8 years now. Our next oldie is the Acrobot, made by Yonezawa from 1969. And there he is right there, arms up in the air. He kind of, he's kind of an interesting fellow. Whether or not he'd qualify as an acrobat, I really don't know. But he is kind of cool. I have the box that comes along with this one. I was very fortunate to get, again, a very, it's almost, I would say, pristine condition robot with an excellent box. The graphics are still nice and bright. The cardboard is not mangled in any way. It still has the original Montgomery Ward price tag. This robot sold originally for $4.49. I paid a lot more for him than that, okay? But to me, he's worth every moment of it, every bit of it, I should say. And again, he's in wonderful condition. One of the problems that often comes with this robot when you purchase it, this tab, which I still don't really know what it's for, is broken off in the back. And he has his. As a matter of fact, very few that I've come across online or at a toy show will have that tab on it. He actually does. And yeah, he's got Acrobat Robot across his chest. On the box it brags, sensational action. Okay? Sensational, I don't know, but we'll show you what he does. Okay? He's got a couple of modes. He's got his regular walking mode. Whoop. I think there's a slight tilt to the table. That's why he's falling backwards. Okay. And he also walks on his head. Oh, you know what? I just found out what that tab does. It keeps him from falling over, if you look at it. We discovered something together. Well, it's kind of sensational, I guess. Not too many robots walk on their heads. And he also has the ability, let me turn him off first. Once you readjust his legs and arms and his head, he walks like a dog. Okay? But he's in wonderful condition. Everything lights up, everything moves. The chrome portions of the robot are in great shape. He's primarily made of tin with metal soles to his feet. And just a very colorful and very graphically pleasing robot. And these can be hard to come across in good working condition. It could be because of the way that you twist the arms and the legs and the heads. It might do something with the mechanics inside, but he's been working very, very well for quite some time, and we'll try to keep him that way. But that's the Acrobot robot made by Yonezawa, Japan, a company that made very responsible for many, many wonderful Japanese toy robots, and from 1968. Okay, now we're going to cross over that bridge from the old robots to the new robots with this particular fellow. Now, he is a newer robot. It was put out by Metal House, I want to say 1995, between 1990 and 1995. But he is based upon an old design, an old Horikawa robot called the Super Space Giant, which originally appeared in 1969. However, his smaller version, the famous attacking Martian, which everyone is familiar with, was a much smaller version, made of tin, with the machine guns and all and the fly eyes. But this is the attacking Martian on steroids. And the original version, which came out in 1969, differs from this remake, though. The original version, and I have the original box right here. Well, this is the reproduction box. But the original version featured a robot that walked forward several steps, and then he would stop, and then he would rotate 4.5 times and start walking in the opposite direction. That's the original version. Unfortunately, when Metal House came out with the remake in the early 90s, they kept everything the same, but they eliminated that feature of the rotating action. But still, he loses that dynamic quality of that very exciting movement, but still, it's a very striking, very well-made robot. And the difference also, too, from the original is, if you were to look at the guns inside them, the original version has clear machine guns or laser guns with a pink light bulb inside it. All the reproductions have the orange gun, so that's another way to tell them apart. Okay? And when they originally made this big fellow in 1969, they put the original fly eyes, the perforated eyes in the head, but they added yellow in back of it. They found that when they enlarged the designs, you could look through there and just see an empty head inside that robot. I guess it wasn't a good way to portray their robots as being, empty-headed, even though robots are considered mindless and do what we tell them to do. So they put those yellow parts in back, and it gives a more striking look to the robot as well. And he stands about 16 inches tall, I want to say. He's very bulky. Again, the design is very faithful to the original attacking Martian with the riveted arms, the clasping claws, the heavy feet, the bolts in his legs. And we'll see him walking now. He's very menacing. He's great for terrorizing pets in the house. Now again, if this were the original version, he'd walk forward several feet, he'd spin around, shooting his guns, 4.5 rotations, and then he would walk in the opposite direction. But a fantastic looking robot. And he is pretty hefty when you hold him up, even without batteries in him. Very well constructed, beautiful lithography in the front. All of the Horikara robots had that hallmark, such beautiful lithography inside and outside. And so again, he's kind of like a bridge, old and new, old design, but manufactured fairly recently in the early 90s. And super giant, super space giant. And his box is beautiful. Again, it's a wonderful example of how they promoted their products. They would have these artists do these very exciting renderings. These robots would either be walking through a spacescape, blazing their guns, rockets, flying saucers going off in the background, or they would be terrorizing a city, knocking over buildings on their way to invading the Earth. But I'm sure the artwork did a lot to help sell these robots, capture the attention of boys and girls, and you know, Mom, Dad, I just got to have this. I know it worked with me. And but a very beautiful piece of artwork in itself. Okay, and now we're going to look at some newer robots. Now, this particular robot right here, he is the Fireman Robot. And he is a wonderful design. I really like the design of this robot. I like the choices of the chrome and the red, the green eyes. It's just a very eye-catching, very classy-looking design. And you might notice his body as being the body that's used for the smoking spaceman, a very popular robot that Yonezawa came out with in the 50s. And this is a more modern version. He's called the Fireman Robot. And we'll see what he does right now. What's wonderful about this particular design, too, I always like this design of robot. They have the batteries in the legs. I'll show you. They have these little hatches that open up, and there's the batteries stored inside. Most of your robots will have them in the back, located midway on the bodies of the robots. And just having the batteries located at the bottom created for a much more stable design. Your robot had less likelihood of toppling over or falling down, and I think it just helped with the walking action. And so I just love that aspect of this particular design. And here he goes. And he will stop, and you will notice a clicking sound. And when he clicks, he's blowing smoke out of his mouth. However, but he needs to have his smoke replenished. So it's going to take a long time for it to get going with him. Once it starts to heat up, you'll see smoke coming out. But he needs a little bit more oil in him, which I should have done before this demonstration. Now, they sell a type of smoke liquid that you can use. Generally, it's used for train sets that have smoking. See, I can smell the smoke right now. I don't know if I can see it. But that you can drop into him. Also, you can use regular cooking oil. Just drop it in the little bin in his mouth, and once that heats up, he'll start smoking. But he's just a really cool looking robot as he gates along. Now, there are some versions I've seen that come with a fireman's cap, as is shown in the box, on the box right here. I think he looks a little more dignified without it, though. I think I saw some smoke. Oh, could be my imagination. But again, that really classic robot design, the boxy head, boxy body, the bulging eyes, the grill-like mouth. And there we are. There we have his smoke. We're going for a close-up. I think the next time he comes around, he's going to smoke for you. There's a few wisps. I can see it. Okay, let's see it. Give us some smoke. There we are. I don't know if it's catching it, but there's smoke coming out right now. Yeah. And I don't know why he's smoking. I would think he'd be putting out fires instead of starting them, but that is the Fireman Robot. And again, just a very, very cool design. And this was manufactured by Papa San Toys. I want to say also in the early 90s. They came out with some very nice reproduction robots and some original designs. They were very inexpensive at the time. Now, since the company has gone out of business, you can see all these prices just skyrocketing. Also, with the advent of Metal House, one of the last great houses for producing metal robots, since they went out of business just a few years back, the prices have just really skyrocketed. Every once in a while, you're able to find one cheaply or come across a good buy, but it's becoming harder and harder, I find. The Fireman Robot. And now, we're going to go look at a newer robot, and nothing really spectacular about him, but I came across him in a store and I just had to buy him because he made me smile when I turned him on. And if anything can make you smile, you grab a hold of it and you hang on to it, especially if it's a robot in my case. And it's this little fellow right here, and he's called the Gear Robot. Now, I have many Gear robots in my collection. One of the aspects of everyone has a particular type of favorite toy robot. Those that fire guns, those that rotate, those that have flashing lights, or those that change their faces. I've always been partial to the Gear robots. I just like to watch the spinning action and the lights. And this little fellow has quite a lot of gears in him. He's all gears. And when you turn him on, they spin around, they flash, and he plays music. And here he goes. And he's what's known in the toy world as mystery action. And basically, he bumps into something and turns in the other direction. But as you can see, you can't help but smile with this little guy right here. And it's really quite fascinating to just look at it. It's a kind of a hypnotic effect, all those flashing lights, twirling gears, and that infectious music. And he's out there right now. You can purchase him. I think he cost me $8. So a really nice purchase, a really nice addition, simple addition to my robot collection, but one that's very charming. I'll be humming that tune for the rest of the afternoon. And here's his robot. It's got a clear plastic window in the front and illustrations of him on the back. He comes in two different colors, a blue and what looks like a purple. So, and there we go. And he is manufactured in Shantou, China. And now, for the last robot in my presentation, we're going to the strange right now, and it's this little fellow right here. I came across him on eBay, and when I came across him, I was just scratching my head because I've never seen this particular design before. I mean, there are others that are similar, you know, that he's what's known as kind of like a bullet-shaped robot, sort of like Mr. Atomic and others out there, but I've just never have come across him. That fin in the back, he has movable arms. They don't move when he's running. You have to just move them about yourself. He has flashing antennae. He has a turning head. I have a feeling that the turning head is something that is part of his running, but I've never taken him apart. It does not turn when he runs. But I'll run him for you right now. And here he goes. And again, he's that mystery action. Go that way. There we go. And again, I have this sneaking suspicion that the head might have moved at one time as it runs, but again, I've been happy the way he is, so I haven't taken him apart. And he has a very unusual placement of the battery. Well, not unusual, but the batteries are stored in the legs, but it's a very weak catch, and so I have to put a little piece of tape to hold the batteries in place, to hold the lid in place, I should say. But he's just a really cool design, and he has a K on his belt. So that is some type of hint, I guess, as to the name of this robot. So if anyone out there, if you happen to know who he is, please let me know. I'd love to know more about this particular guy. But again, I came across him, and I just love the shape. I love the hands and the arms, and I have none other like him in my collection. So he fits in very nicely. And so that brings me to the end of this presentation on robots. I hope you enjoyed watching my robots in action. I enjoyed sharing them with you, believe me, and I enjoy talking about them. I think everyone should have something to collect. Mine happens to be robots. I can think of nothing better to collect. They're all so different in their designs. They all do such wonderful things, and when you think of the type of imagination that went into their designs, I just marvel over that. To me, there's nothing quite like them today out there in the toy market. And I just love collecting the old robots from years back, because you've got to wonder about who played with them before you, who received this Mr. Atomic one Christmas or for birthday. And you know, what their impression was when they first took it out of the box and began playing with it. So they have that history of being passed down from hand to hand, from child to child to full-grown adult. But I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope to share with you again.